Hey folks, I am Gene Della Sala, President of Audioholics, and today we're here with
Hugo Rivera, Vice President of Marketing. And Gene, we've been hearing some pretty good stuff over here about Atmos, but first of all, why are you wearing the hat?
Well, that's a good question, Hugo. I basically said, if you remember our first Atmos video, that if the Atmos elevation speaker, the one where the speaker fires up towards Cybertron,
Yeah.
if that speaker works and it's convincing, I'll eat my hat.
Oh boy, that's what's happening. Okay, so are we going to be eating the hat or not?
Well, here's the deal. We have our guys at CEDIA covering the show for us while we man the fort over here. They've given us some pretty good results, and I want to go over that with you. Let's just say that I have my hat here, and when I get the speakers in-house and I test them here, and they're convincing not just at the sweet spot, which a lot of what we're hearing right now, but at multiple seats. You know, we have 5 seats in our theater room.
Right.
If it can convince me of the elevation effect at all my seats, I will eat cereal out of my hat.
I'll join you with it.
Yes, but let's make sure it's got plenty of protein, though.
Yes, absolutely. I will
Okay.
never just eat carbs, so.
So do you want to
No.
go over what the guys have been hearing?
Absolutely, please.
Great. Well, you know, everybody's been great at CEDIA. We went to about 5 or 6 demos so far. You know, the show was just getting started the other day. First up was Yamaha. And Yamaha basically set up a small room. It was mostly closed in. The back wall was open to the demo area, so it was a little noisy, so the effects were a little hard to discern. Interesting thing about Yamaha, though, is they use 5 regular speakers and 4 ceiling-mounted in-ceiling speakers.
Okay.
So we had 2 guys over there listening to the demos. We had Steve Munns and Cliff Hain. And Cliff thought that the demo was really good, except that he was sitting like right underneath one of the ceiling speakers. So when those ceiling speakers were hitting down, they were distracting. And you know, this is the same kind of thing that I heard when I went to an Atmos theater twice. And this is why I've been saying ever since Atmos came out that I'm guessing that 2 things. When you're dealing with ceiling speakers, you need something that has wide dispersion, and you probably need to knock it down 3 to 6 dB below the rest of the channels.
Probably, yeah.
Because we hear laterally, and that's how we localize. So when you start throwing sounds above us, kind of confuses
you, yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Now, Steve, on the other hand, loved the demo because there was a scene, I guess he said something where this projector blossomed in the scene, and he said that it gave you the exact effect of where you thought it should be based on what the video was showing you.
Excellent.
He could not achieve that with any of the Atmos enabled speakers. So that was the Yamaha demo. I think it was a pleasing demo for them. And you know, it's interesting because Yamaha is all about the front heights, rear heights, but they didn't choose the elevation module. They chose the in-ceiling approach.
Well, and this sounds like it is perfectly in line with the kind of cinema experience you had.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. From hearing what they heard, reminds me of what I heard when I watched Gravity and I watched The Hobbit in Atmos. So next up was Definitive Technology, and Hugo, you know I'm a big fan of Def Tech. Love their speakers. We heard their towers last year at CEDIA. Awesome. A little skeptical about their Atmos elevation speaker because, you know, it's $500 a pair, 3-inch paper treated driver.
Right.
So what they had at their demo was they had 4 towers, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, center channel, and side dipole speakers. Interestingly, they were elevated 3 or 4 feet above ear level. Each of the towers had that Atmos module on it. Okay. So Cliff, you know, first Cliff told me about his demo experiences, and what Cliff told me was when they played Dolby content, like Dolby demo material, then the Atmos effect was really neat. You know, he heard a lot of diffused but ambient surround effects. But when they switched to regular movies like Star Trek, the new Star Trek movie, you know, the one that rips off Khan.
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
It's a completely different video, Gene.
Yeah, please don't start me on that. Anyways, he told me that the effects were much more subtle, like he didn't get any localization effects at all, that there was any elevation from the Atmos modules. Now, Steve, on the other hand, you know, this demo didn't do much for him, man. He didn't get any elevation effects. The only elevation effects he felt he had was from the dipole speakers that are not the Atmos channels that were 2 or 3 feet above ear level.
That's interesting. Were they sitting in the same location or no?
No, interesting question. Cliff was in the sweet spot. Steve was a little bit off to the left or the right. I can't remember. And that's a good observation, because what we're finding based on their demo experience is these Atmos elevation modules, they tend to give you this effect maybe in a very small area. But if you've got a movie theater in your house that's got 5, 6, 7 seats or more, you know, it might not hit all those seats in the same way.
Yeah, you know, and again, and I hate, you know what, I'm going to make a statement, and it's not an anti-Atmos statement, because we're getting really accused here of being anti-Atmos, which we're not, okay? But what I'm thinking, just from pure physics, okay, it will make perfect sense, because if you have the sound waves bouncing at a specific angle based on the room that you're in and everything, it will be hard to have more than one sweet spot, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. You know, the sound's going to scatter once it bounces. You're going to lose a lot of the high frequency effects. That's the other interesting thing, too, is when Cliff was hearing the elevation speakers, even in the Pioneer one, most of the high frequency effects most of the effects he was hearing from the elevation were high frequency related. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. If you watch our video on how we explain how the Dolby Atmos elevation speaker works, they have what's called a human-related transfer function curve built in to the processing, to the DSP at the AV receiver side. And what that does is it gives you a bump at 7 kilohertz and a notch like at 10 or 12 kilohertz. Mm-hmm. And that supposedly raises the elevation effect in the speaker. Mm-hmm. Now, here's another interesting point, like with the DefTech, with a 3-inch cone driver like that. When you're dealing with a 3-inch paper driver, even if you treat it, the breakup mode's going to be 7 or 8 kilohertz, sometimes lower, a lot lower usually. And guess what? Guess what frequencies we're boosting? We're boosting 7 kilohertz. So you're boosting the breakup mode and you're increasing that elevation, but at the same time you're also could be increasing distortion, increasing compression. So there's definitely limitations that you got to be concerned about if you're putting these in your house, especially if it's a big room with wide seating area.
Right.
Okay, that's a problem. So, you know, overall they loved the demo because DefTech makes great speakers, and you know, there were no complaints in that regards for the sound quality.
Awesome.
You know, the next demo, this is one of the most impressive demos that they heard, was Marantz. Marantz put on a demo with Snell speakers, and we were huge fans of Snell. We were very upset when we heard that D&M basically discontinued the brand. But it's interesting they keep using their speakers because they make good stuff, man.
I know, right?
A speaker designed 10 years ago that was good then is still good today.
Absolutely.
So here's another demo that used all in-ceiling speakers.
Makes sense.
2 pairs. And Cliff and Steve both said that these were some of the best demos they heard. The most convincing effects were heard, again, from the in-ceiling speaker. But again, if you were sitting right under a speaker, it's distracting.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes perfect sense again, you know?
Yeah.
So
you know, up to the last demo that they did so far with the Atmos elevation speakers, they went into Pioneer, and we're big fans of what Andrew Jones has done with the brand. You know, you saw my review of their entry-level speakers last year.
Great stuff.
One of the best reviews we've ever given on a budget-level tower. Well, you know, the new elevation speakers they came out with are concentric wound speakers. They have a tweeter built into the woofer, and then they have a module up on top, 20-degree angle. The same mid-range is used that's in the main speaker is used up here. And both Steve and Cliff said that that was the most convincing elevation demo they've heard. Steve said if he was sitting in the sweet spot, it was very close to what you would get at an in-ceiling speaker.
Awesome.
Cliff felt, again, it was mostly high frequency that he was hearing, like the thunderstorms and stuff. It was more the high frequency effects he was hearing. And then when they moved around the room, that obviously that effect kind of went away. And also when they went from the Dolby enabled demos, the demo clips that Dolby produced, it was a night and day difference when they went from 5.1 to 5.1 with Atmos. But then when they went to regular movie material, it was, you know, not quite as dramatic, much more subtle. And that's another thing too. There was one demo that they did with music, not Pioneer. I think that demo was done by DefTech, I believe. When they went to music, they didn't really hear any Atmos effect at all. They didn't hear the height effect.
Right.
So, you know, at this point, we don't know if Atmos is going to be applicable to music concerts or if it's just going to be for, you know, for wow effects in movies.
Right. Yeah, because of course, I mean, movies that have like a lot of effects like thunder and things like that
Or artificial effects, like you don't really know where these effects are going to come
Exactly.
from. You know, when when Arnold crushes someone in Terminator, you're not slamming people like it's a truck door.
Right, right.
You know, so it's these kind of effects are artificial anyways. So who's to say what's right and wrong?
Exactly. Well, I think we'll have to wait and see and give our own opinion based on experience. But definitely, I think we have collected enough data to kind of have a little bit of a flavor of how it works, you know.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that there is a good effect that's coming out of these speakers if they're properly designed and you're sitting in the right location and you have the right ceiling height and your ears are receptive to the transfer function that they're using, because everybody hears differently.
Right.
I could sit in a sweet spot and hear the speaker. It sounds wonderful to me. You might hear differently than me. You got more hair than I do, so maybe the sound will bounce off your head more than me. So who knows? You know, that's one thing I want to do when we get these speakers in for evaluation is I'm not going to just do my own listening test and call it a day. I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to bring our friends in, our wives. Our wives have better hearing than us.
Absolutely.
They could hear bats fart.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to get a significant sample size, rather than to say this will definitely work or this will definitely not work.
Right, and we also have to consider the vaulted ceiling problem, you know.
Yes.
And that's something we can test in my place.
Definitely, you know? And even Dolby says they tested it from 8 to 14-foot ceilings. You know, obviously if your ceilings are higher than that and you got a lot of reflections in your house, it's probably not going to work very well to begin with.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything. I mean, everything has its pros and cons, you know?
Right.
You just need to know what you're getting into, that's all.
Oh, the last thing I wanted to bring up about Pioneer, Cliff was talking to some of the reps at Pioneer, and they're working on some other Atmos type surround speakers that possibly you can mount on a wall, which is what we've been saying all along. The problem when you put a monopole, which is a single woofer tweeter, front of the cabinet, no side mounted speakers. The problem with a monopole used as a side or back channel at ear level is it becomes very localized, especially if you sit too close to it. So monopoles are great if you're at a sweet spot center of the room, but if you're sitting in the back left of the room, you're gonna be stuck on that one speaker, which is why we've always liked to put speakers on a wall for surround. Not only because it's not a trip hazard anymore and it's more convenient, but it actually gives you a more diffuse sound so that every seat, again, we want every seat to be a good seat, not just one seat. You will really want to do wall-mounted speakers, in-wall speakers for your surround channels if you can. So the fact that Pioneer's looking at doing it, and our experience with Pioneers, they don't half-ass their stuff, they do a good job with engineering. So we're optimistic that they're going to come out with a solution that you can wall mount and then aim or fire the Atmos driver up at the ceiling. And that speaker will be closer to the ceiling, so the reflections that will come off the ceiling will be stronger and more prominent at the listening area.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I think that's a win-win if they come out with that, in the next year or two, whenever they come out with it.
Definitely look forward to that. We'll be reviewing it.
Sure, definitely.
Absolutely. So, Gene, is there anything else to add? Because I hear that we had a pretty successful audition over there with Auro-3D.
Yeah, Hugo. Our guys, they went and they did the Atmos demos, and they went to the Trinov demo, which also did Atmos, and they said that was a pretty impressive demo. It was very loud, though, with the Priscilla speakers and the horn-loaded speakers firing down at the ceiling. So if you were sitting under the ceiling speaker, again, it was a kind of a distraction that you were seeing. But the Auro-3D demo seemed like it was the best of show, according to our guys. They were blown away by the effects of Auro, and no matter where they sat, they had a lot of speakers in the room. And to be fair, this was a $300,000 setup using James loudspeakers. So this is not something that the average person is going to put in their room. I think the Auro processor is like $17,000.
Okay.
But Cliff and Steve were simply stunned by the demo. So, I hope Auro can become mainstream like Dolby is doing, and bring their products and their technology into the affordable realm.
Yeah.
Because I'm not all about monopolies. I'd like to have all the surround formats in my home, and that being Auro-3D, DTS, UHD, and Dolby Atmos.
Do you know by any chance if Atmos is compatible with the Auro-3D?
Well, we have an interview that we're going to be posting real soon here with the president of Auro. I love these guys because they're very upfront It's not like they're trying to hide anything. They answer any question you have. And they said there are some speaker configurations, if you put them in the ceiling, that would be compatible with Auro and Dolby Atmos, but they frowned upon the idea of the elevation speaker. They just don't simply believe in the reflected speaker technology, because they want to give you that good sensation everywhere, not just at one seat. So as far as I can tell from what they were telling us, that if you do the Atmos elevation speakers, they most likely will not be compatible if you ever do Auro-3D. So something to consider when you're doing your home theater.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We want to invite you as well to visit our website at audioholics.com for tons of more informative articles, myth-busting articles, and tons of reviews. We have all the reviews in the planet. As a matter of fact, our preview articles are pretty much like the reviews that you see in other websites. So
yeah, we try to put a lot of information in, technical information, real information, not bogus marketing stuff. So
absolutely. And we also invite you to go ahead and sign up to our newsletter. And by signing up to our newsletter, you get a really cool top AV ebook. Can you talk about the AV ebook, Gene?
Sure. Basically, we have a 2014 AV ebook for this year, and next year it'll be a 2015. And we put together basically all the equipment we reviewed the year. We pick out the ones that really stood out, whether it's performance, value, or both. And we put them in there. So if you want to know what the best Blu-ray player, the best loudspeaker, subwoofer, receiver, we don't quite have the Atmos receivers in there yet, but they will be.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And don't forget, guys, to go ahead and click like on the thumbs up below over here, and also let us know what you think of our videos and give us some suggestions. Anyways, until next time,
keep listening.